You too, huh?
No, I'm reading 1-star reviews
Of the thing you're reading?
of the book I'm reading, and I feel so just like validated.
Ah, well.
Like in a good way.
So.
Is this a new book?
Yes, have you...
Before we get started though, I got a request at some point during the fair week that I forgot to follow through with, that we should probably reintroduce ourselves on occasion.
I'm actually kind of grateful that people are listening enough to ask that question.
Somebody was talking to me when we were working together at the fair, and they were like, I never remember who's like on. And so,
well, why don't you take this opportunity to
we've had cast changes and things such as that. So welcome to the Semi-Bookish podcast, everyone. For those who are unaware, this is the Adrian District Library's podcast that we do like every couple weeks or so, like twice a month.
Whenever we feel like.
Whenever we want. And topics can range from, whatever we want, to bookish topics, to ish topics. Anything that surrounds nerddom or library spaces, we'll cover it. Why not?
Yeah.
So, to start things off, hi, I'm Erin. I am your supreme overlord of the podcasting room.
And you're wearing a fantastic cardigan, by the way.
Thanks. It's actually my mom's.
Oh, well.
And then I am also the local history librarian, so woo. And then next up is
Me? Oh, hi. Well, that would mean I am Tony.
Hi, Tony.
Hi.
Welcome, Tony.
Oh, gosh. And I am the Youth Services Library Assistant, which means that if your child is still a child, then all of the library services that deal with children from no matter, as soon as you find out you have them to the minute that you're kicking them out of the house because they graduated, that is my purview.
That's your realm.
Realm, yeah, that's what I do.
Did we give you a nickname?
Mouth from the South?
Yeah.
Do you want a different one? We'll talk about it later.
I don't have a replacement
a
nickname, so it's not like I can gripe, but, Oh, yeah. You I was gonna...
You will tell it to us later, and then we'll decide if we actually want to put it out there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, last but not least...
Hey, it's me. It's Grant. My name's Grant.
Why did you sound like the guy who just retired from being the voice of Mario? Did anybody see that?
I heard that he retired.
Yeah. But he's now going to be like a spokesperson for Mario.
So he's
not really.
Yeah, right.
He's not actually retiring. He's still getting the coin.
He's just retiring from being the voice actor for the Mario games. What he is actually doing is going around being a spokesperson for Nintendo because he's 67 and he probably was just like, I still want your paycheck. So I don't know. I mean,
So he's getting the oversized gold coins that he collects
exactly.
in his travels.
Exactly. So you are...
Lord-ish.
Yeah, Lord-ish, I guess. That's what people call me sometimes.
And your government name would be?
My government name?
Government?
Yeah, well, my government name's Grant.
Granted, no, I know. I always want to follow it up with something, but I never have anything clever enough.
I'm a clerk here at the Adrian District Library. I do whatever they tell me to do. Out of fear, to be honest.
Would it be fair to call you Grant the Grunt?
Oh,
That's rather horrible.
I don't know because I don't grunt very often.
Oh, God.
And I don't think of myself as a grunt. So.
I'm glad that you don't think of yourself as a grunt. I don't think
you know what? We'll just forget that.
Hey, Grant.
Yeah.
Do you want to do me a favor and tell me what you're reading?
Okay, fine.
Yeah, what are you reading?
What am I reading?
Or playing, or watching, or whatever.
Yeah, I'm reading Eichmann in Jerusalem by Hannah Arendt, which...
Oh! Isn't she the one who did the... Her name is familiar.
She's a historian,
yes,
political philosopher, whatever you want to call it.
Yes. She has a famous book that I'm trying to remember.
It might be this one because this book is the origin of the term "the banality of evil."
Oh, is that where
it's
that
like the
came
subtitle
from?
for the book?
Okay, yes, that probably is it then.
But yeah, she was present at the trial of Adolf Eichmann, the high-ranking Nazi man.
Really?
In the newly formed state of Israel. She was there and she was reporting on it, and then through the book, she kind of discusses how normal people can get pulled up into like authoritarian systems and stuff. It's very interesting. It's very depressing, but it's very interesting.
I can imagine, but that actually is something people should read or read more.
Yeah, the first chapter is very, very dry.
Is it?
Yeah, I had to push through it, but after that, it's pretty smooth sailing.
Okay.
So,
Nice.
Yeah. So that's what I'm reading.
Nice.
Honestly, I don't think I've watched anything particularly memorable recently. I'm watching The Sopranos. So that's taken up the majority of my.
Well, there you go. And it's your first time watching The Sopranos?
It's my first time watching.
Well, that's
The Sopranos.
memorable for you.
So much gabagool.
Is it?
And it all has to do with the gabagool.
I don't know what that is.
So it's some type of meat.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Really?
It's an Italian meat dish.
Is that on HBO Max?
Yes, it is.
It is. Okay.
Yeah.
I hope to
This tells you that Tony's going to be watching that sometime soon.
Possibly.
It's very good. There are some blaringly late 90s, early 2000s like tropes.
Sure.
Like just the way that they portray the kids, I find very awkward at times. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It's just a thing, like in that time period where they get older people to play younger people. Blah, 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 blah.
I felt the same thing about Nip Tuck. I thought everything was great except for the teenager because I was like, oh, come on. Like, really? But
yeah, obviously, I can't remember the main actor who's since passed away. James Gandolfini.
Oh,
he's great.
He's James Gandolfini.
Pretty much everybody's great.
Yeah.
I foresee it getting better. So yeah.
Oh, good. All right.
Tony, what are you reading?
No, you're next.
You know how this works.
Yeah.
Oh. Alright, so first of all, I'm going to get the good out of the way and say that I'm playing Sims right now.
Oh, good.
I have a cute storyline going where my character is writing and getting bags of money so they can afford a really big house and become this giant spellcaster dynasty. So yeah, woo!
Oh, well, yeah, that's why I want bags of money.
No.
Become a spellcaster.
Yeah. Right.
And then also this weekend, so next episode, you'll hear me rave and rant about Baldur's Gate 3 because I finally downloaded it and bought it.
Okay.
So you'll hear me ranting and raving about that.
Sure.
I hear there's tons of stuff like there's spells, there's stuff you can change to a bear.
You can get an owl bear as a pet.
Okay.
Oh,
I was alluding to a very specific
I don't know just yet. I'm really just here for the elf man vampire thing.
Okay.
And everybody who plays Baldur's Gate 3 knows exactly who that is already because everybody's been riding his train since early access period. So I've been reading kind of technically 2 books at once.
Okay. Do you want to start with the good one or the bad one?
Let's start with the good one.
All right. Good news first.
The good one I've been reading A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab.
Oh, yes. I have heard that's good.
I started reading it through Libby, and I actually at first I was very confused because I didn't read the little blurb that you get at the beginning. Mm-hmm. I make it a point not to read the summary so that way I don't accidentally foreshadow everything that is about to occur. Mm-hmm. Because I can and will already predict what's going to happen, and then it just kind of ruins it because I'm like, I've already saw this coming. We already know that this is happening. Sure, yeah. So I didn't read it. I was kind of confused for a bit, but after reading the summary, I was not too spoiled, so I'm okay. Mm-hmm. And I'm actually kind of excited to see where this goes. It follows a guy named Kel who can go in between Londons. There's 5 separate Londons, and he has a special magic power that he can go in between all 5, and he takes messages back and forth. He's actually the brother, I think adopted brother to the prince. Mm-hmm. I think the king and queen found him and they adopted him, and he's part of their family. Oh. So he's not full royalty, but he gets treated as such by his family.
I'm trying to picture the current royal residents of London even attempting something like that.
Well, each different London has a different set of rulers. One London, it's George, I think, the 3rd.
Okay.
And then one London, it's a completely different ruler. One London, I think it's Victoria. So it just depends on which London he's in. Mm. But he's from one of the specific, I think it's White London, but don't ask me. Mm-hmm. I don't remember off the top of my head because of the other book being so terrible. But anyways, So he goes back and forth, and what he does is he smuggles people in between the different Londons.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And he gets in trouble, and he smuggles himself out to a different London where he meets this girl named Lila, who I don't know much about her just yet, because she just appeared in the book.
Okay.
And I'm like 100 pages in on my
Oh, nice.
So therefore, I'm at least a good portion, and she's kind of just been introduced. She's not like fully like a character yet, but like she burned down a ship, so I kind of like her already.
Well, yeah.
And so they're gonna go on an adventure, and this is like a series, so I'm gonna assume it goes farther, so I'm actually kind of excited to read it. And then I saw this book on
Bad news time.
Yeah, I saw this book on my BookBub. It was the second book in a series, and I was like, well, I can't read this one without reading the second one. The first one. So I turned around and I was like, do I actually want to buy it right now? And I'm actually glad that I didn't. I went on Libby and I put it on hold for myself, and I held off until it came in, and so I'm like halfway through this thing, and I just need to...
I'm actually very curious which book it is.
It's Neon Gods by Katie Robert.
Okay.
And so here's the thing. For anybody who wants to know what this book is, it is supposed to be a modern Hades and Persephone retelling. Set in like a modern kind of society.
Well, yeah, because Katie Roberts is like the queen of paranormal romance right now. She's
also kind of like a smutty romance person, but
paranormal romance.
So great.
Right.
So I started out. It reads, and I'm just going to be bluntly honest, and everybody can flame me later for it. You can send your flames to me at the library specifically, and I literally will not care. It reads like a fan fiction that I would read in high school on Wattpad or fanfiction.net if I didn't have anything else to read.
Well, again,
if you took
it is a paranormal romance.
No, well, it's not even that. It's like I took, like, two characters and I just, like, smushed them together as, like, a thing. There's no real world building happening in this whole entire book. So the whole entire premise is there's Olympus, and Olympus is the modern, like, city. I don't know exactly where this is, but we're
so that's like its own city?
Yeah. And so there's the top of Olympus, then there's the river Styx, and then there's the lower half of Olympus.
Sure.
So you have 13 gods and or goddesses or whatever, your 13 people in power, that's your normal Olympians. But the thing is, the Olympians, and they never really touch base on this, which makes me kind of, like, upset, but, like, the Olympians can either be voted into power and they get the name of the god that, like, they're in the domain that they're part of.
Okay.
Or they can be born into it and, like, raised, and then, like, they replace their dad or their mother or something with the name. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Tommy Space says everything I need to know. This follows Persephone. Yeah. Persephone is the daughter of Demeter, and the thing that really kind of irked me the most is, like, especially because this is a modern retelling, and I guess you can do whatever you want. But her sisters are Callisto, Psyche, and Eurydice.
I'm curious to know how that works out.
It doesn't, because they don't touch on it ever.
Okay, so
they're just there.
She just brought in a bunch of random Greek women?
Yes, they're just, to be honest, they're just there from the first, like, halfway through that I've gone through.
Okay.
And, so, they're at this party. Zeus throws a giant party, where he announces to everyone and proposes to, in front of everyone, Persephone. She has absolutely no idea that this is about to occur. Her mother is in on it, but they never really divulge as to why Demeter's in on it. They're just like, yeah, sure, she can become the next Hera. But the plot twist is that Zeus has murdered his last 3 wives. The last 3 Heras.
Okay.
And so now, all of a sudden, it's Persephone, and so she's like, I can't do this, I can't stay here.
So she decided to throw in a little Scheherazade, just because...
Sure. So she decides to run away, and as she's running away, she's getting chased by Zeus's, like, minions, and she runs across the river Styx into the lower half of Olympus.
Which is how we get Hades, right?
Which is how we get Hades. All right. But Hades, according to Persephone, this whole entire time has been a myth, and they don't think that he exists. But he's there, And I'm like, how do you not know he exists if this is a modern world? Like, wouldn't you, like, know about it? Unless he's, like, an underbelly, like, mafia type dude. But they never really touch on that either. So she's turning around and she, like, runs across. He saves her.
Where is this city supposed to be located?
California, because Persephone turns 25 in 3 months, according to the book, which then she gets access to her trust fund, and then she's going to run away even further to go to Berkeley to get a PhD.
Okay, I suddenly don't want to hear anything else about this book.
It means no sense.
I don't understand.
It means nothing. And then, like, all of a sudden, we just have, like, Hades just, like, saves her, and then he just keeps her captive in his house, and she decides to strike up a bargain where she stays for the last 3 months for winter with Hades.
Okay, so anyone who's listening to this podcast, you have homework. You need to come here to us, or call, or email, and please let us know if there are any good paranormal romances that you would recommend, because this is the standard plot to every paranormal romance I have ever heard in my life.
Like,
it's always something that doesn't make any sense.
To be honest, to be honest, the only thing that has to do with Hades and Persephone / Olympian gods in general is their names. If you change,
so there's not even any kind of like
no magic, no nothing.
So it's just like an allusion to the
Okay. So if you just change their names to, I don't know, I'm just gonna go 50 Shades of Grey style.
Yeah,
here.
right.
If you just changed it to Bella and Edward,
well, no wonder,
it would be the exact same plot, and nobody would know the difference.
No wonder it feels like Wattpad, because this is the kind of thing that you would do on a fanfiction site, and you don't have to explain it, because everybody knows, oh, well, this is you know, like, Nick and Charlie coffee shop AU, not that we need more coffee shop with Nick and Charlie, but like, we get it, like, it's like you don't need to...
I feel like this is a, like, I feel like this is, like, a fan, like, and this is how I explained it to my friend the other day. I'm like, I feel like this is a modern Sasuke Sakura, like, fan fiction that I'm reading on fanfiction.net in high school, where I don't have to know a lot of the craziness of the intricacies of the plot, because I'm already well aware I'm reading fan fiction of it.
Yeah.
And we're just going through the motions here because, like, I don't need to know any more plot than just, like, okay, I just want to put them together in a Mafia AU. Like, that's it.
Right.
Like, that's what I feel like I've just read. And I just... And also the smut
She's really hot right now, though.
She is, but the smut is
like
just
her
kind
and
of like...
Colleen Hoover.
The smut is just kind of like, great, go read something on, like, AO3, please, for the love of God. If you want to read this, just go read fanfiction in AO3. Like, you will have a better experience.
That really is as bad. Actually, that's worse than I thought it was going to be. But
no,
all right.
No, I had to DNF it.
But Tony, isn't it inspiring that stuff like that can get published?
No.
I wish that it was inspiring. There are moments. I'm joking. No, I know. Stephen King does say, and he's not wrong about this, he said that a revolutionary moment for him was reading a book. This was before he published Carrie, and he was reading a book that was, hot. And he thought, oh, I can do better than this. Or, I have done better than this. And he was like, that's a great moment for a writer. Ride that wave.
I literally read this and I went, true. I could possibly... I don't write anything ever, and I literally thought that I could probably write something.
Yeah, some people are just terrible, but
they make money. I might give her another try with another couple books that I have in my thing.
You're bold.
But just to see if there's any difference, or if she's just, like, writing it kind of, like, manual, like, I'm writing it to a strict, like...
Sure.
Order of things.
Sure.
Sure. I want to feel better about this. Tony, what are you reading?
Okay, so before I get to what I'm reading, I'm going to give a sort of an entertainment update.
Yay!
Because I've had so much fun catching up on things. So I have, because I'm the person that I am, I have officially binged Heartstopper season 1 and 2 twice.
Yay!
Now. I will do it again. Probably next week, because it just is that delightful. I never want to be without this lovely, lovely TV show. It's fantastic. So get thee to Netflix and do that. The other entertainment update is also queer romantic related, specifically MLM. But anyway, Red, White, and Royal Blue, the movie, is on is an Amazon Prime exclusive movie because they did the production for it. It is... how to describe it without being too ridiculous? Okay, so I'll say this. I went in... I actually went in with some hope. Like, I went in thinking, all right, I'm going to go in, I'm going to watch this, I'm going to see what I think. Because the last time that people got all fussy about something was My Policeman, and I actually really enjoyed My Policeman. And I found everybody's criticisms of it ridiculous. There are criticisms to be had, small things, but...
I don't think I've ever heard of that.
So My Policeman is based off of a book by, I think it's Beth Ann Roberts, I think her name is. And it's basically it's Harry Styles. It was one of the two Harry Styles movies that were sort of like competing with each other. Everyone panned Don't Worry Darling. It's about straight people. I really don't care. So I'm not watching it. even though I love Harry Styles, I'm like, eh. So My Policeman was I would call it the bi one, but you really don't know. But I would just say it's basically the story about this police officer who finds himself falling in love with a man and a woman at the same time. And he's having a full-on affair with this man while he is married to this woman. And his wife finds out. He does not... I can't remember if he knows that she finds out or not. But I know that she does find out, and it really gets under her skin. And they stay married. And so you have two storylines happening where you have the one happening in the past with the three of them sort of getting to know each other and that kind of thing. And then you have the one in the future where the male lover has fallen ill and needs somewhere to stay, and he's written to the wife. And she is constantly like trying to get her husband to be like, come on, let's bring him to the house. We're going to take care of him. And the husband is just completely like, nope, don't want to think about it. Don't want to look at it. Don't want to, And finally, I'm going to spoil this. Sorry. Finally, she gets to a point where she is like, you know what? This was never about me. Bye. But it's done. But it's done in such a way that is so human. That's the thing I loved about that movie, is that it really showed how capable we are as people to understand something. If we just pay attention to the people that we love, we can sort of get through things, and we can understand things, and we can make decisions based off of empathy. I love that about that movie. I know it's not sexy. I don't really care. But something that is sexy is the Red, White, and Royal Blue movie. It is, first of all, they're very pretty, so that helps.
Well, obviously.
But the first fourth of the movie, I will say, was very rushed in terms of like the different beats that you need to convince the audience that these two people actually would be together. It was pretty rushed. But then there's a moment in which one character is sort of expressing to the other what his life looks like. He's like, this is what I deal with all the time. This is how it feels to be me. That kind of thing. And the other character sort of listening for the first time, and suddenly that whole moment works so well that I was like, oh, yep, I'm there. And for the rest of the movie, I thought it was beautifully done. It's not meant to be revolutionary. It's a straight up romance story. So, it does all of the things it's supposed to do. And it's not shot in a particularly fascinating or, revolutionary way. It's just a movie with pretty people who fall in love. But I liked it a lot. It was really nice. And I think the ending did do something, I don't want to say that I've never seen before, but it was moving in a way that I've rarely seen.
Is it different than the book? Or
I don't know. You know what? I have the book to read. I was going to read it beforehand, but then I never got around to it. So now I'm going to read it because I've seen, and I'm like, all right, I can get down with. It's just a really good movie. And what am I reading? Yes, I am going to tell you what I'm going to be reading. Except tonight, not tonight as in the people who are listening to this right now tonight, but tonight as in the time in which we are recording this. I will be joining the rest of the Star Wars fans who matter. And we will be watching Ahsoka.
Ooh.
She is coming 9 p.m. 2 episodes.
Are you excited?
I can't even tell you. And I'm prepared, and I don't even know what I'm prepared for. I'm just like, oh my God. So, that's what I'm going to be doing. And what I'm reading right now is a book called Husband Material by Alexis Hall. No, not Husband Material. Boyfriend Material. Husband Material is the sequel.
That comes later.
Yeah, right. It is. It's literally the sequel. But Boyfriend Material is the first one. And it's a romance novel about this guy whose dad was a rock star. A really terrible, like famous, but he did all the drugs and all the things and whatever. And so this kid has always grown up under the shadow, and now his dad has come back doing a reality TV series, and so he's suddenly thrust the entire family back into the spotlight, except his family hates his guts because he's never been around. Mm-hmm. So this kid has to he's not a kid, he's like 23, but he has to manage what it feels like to be an adult whose life in so many other aspects is failing, but in the one aspect that he's being watched all the time by people, and he's just like, but my life isn't anything. And he meets this guy who's supposed to fix the problem, and we haven't met the guy yet because it's super early, but yeah, the writing is really, really captivating and easygoing, and I think I'm gonna really like reading Alexis Hall's books if I like the story, because he's pretty good at this. I've also been reading a bunch of Alexis Hall interviews recently, so I'm kind of interested to see who he is as a writer, and particularly in romance, because he's interesting. Anyway, there's my very, very ridiculously long introduction of one of the things that I'm entertained by at the moment. I want to talk about death.
That was a very just abrupt change.
It was.
Almost
much like death.
The transitory state by which we exit life.
In which many characters also exit the page.
Yes, I want to talk about death in entertainment, death in fiction, because it's something we kind of accept.
Right.
But I'm curious to know, what do we think about... I guess my first question would be, what makes death in a story something that you... something memorable? What would make a memorable death in a piece of fiction?
For me?
It's a terrible question, I know, but yeah.
If I'm emotionally attached
to
the character.
Okay. That's dying?
Yeah. So, for example, when you were talking about reading, what is it, Stormborn Archives?
The Stormlight Archive? Yeah.
So, when I started reading that, I turned around, and I have other things where I'll also use as examples, but when you first start reading it, you're following one character, and there's four separate you explained it to me that there's four separate sections that he kind of wrote them as kind of different prologues, and so they're completely and utterly different.
Because he's an insane person, yes.
One of the prologues, I say prologues loosely, followed a side character that he's the newest guy in his little army group or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so this is his first rodeo going into this whole entire fight. But he's put with quote unquote the best group because they've never lost anybody. Mm-hmm. And so I'm sitting here thinking, one, in my brain, I'm going, oh, well, that's not going to happen. You literally just put yourself in that position of saying, well, we're the best, and now it's going to happen exactly the opposite.
Yes, right, because it's a story.
But
exactly.
My brain is also going, because he's so nervous, I'm thinking to myself, and spoiler alert, he's not, but I'm going, well, he might be one of the main characters because of the fact that Sanderson is presenting him as an underdog. Mm-hmm. Sanderson is basically putting him almost in the most perfect position to have his whole entire group go out mm-hmm. and everyone but him die. Right. They are putting him in that perfect position.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
They are literally writing it down right then and there. Okay, so that's exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And so I feel safe in that moment to get slightly attached to the fact that he feels like such an underdog character.
Yeah.
He's really nervous. He's probably going to go through some trauma. This is going to be fantastic. Mm-hmm. I can go through that trauma with him. Mm-hmm. No, he dies too.
Yeah.
And so I got upset, and I remember walking into the workroom and telling Tony all about this. I was like, I am upset that this character has died. Why did they need to die? I was hoping that they would be a character because I was rooting for them. But, like, in that sense, like, if I can get emotionally attached, and I will give Sanderson credit, unlike Robert, where I cannot get attached to any of the characters. But, like, I will give Sanderson credit. He wrote that tiny little underdog character who only shows up in that one chapter to fuel the main character who is the leader of that division, who is the one who ends up surviving out of everyone else.
Yeah, yeah.
I was so attached just by that one chapter.
Yeah.
Like, that's how well that was written.
Yeah.
Like, this is similar to, like, playing Resident Evil 4. And in Resident Evil 4, there's one character, and I think it's Luis is his name, and I never remember his name. And that's just because he's so, like, quietly, like, there for a hot minute, and then he leaves, and then I know what I want. I know what I know. I can't type words. Yeah, it's Luis. Luis. And he pops in at one point because Leon gets knocked out, and he gets tied up, and Luis is on the other side of him. And they're both tied up together. And he's just kind of there as a character for a hot minute, because if you don't read the little, like, notes that you find everywhere, you don't realize that he's an integral part of why the infection is happening in that village.
Sure.
But he's just kind of there, and he just appears. And he is written as just kind of like a one-off where he's just, you think he's just going to come save you every once in a while, and he's just kind of like your little lifeline for a hot second, every once in a while to save you, and then you can all just, like, leave together at the end.
Yeah.
But later on, what happens is both Leon, Ashley, and Louise are all infected with the plaga, which is like a giant parasite thing that takes over your body and kills you slowly. Louise gets the cure because Ashley needs the cure because she's the president's daughter.
Yeah, right.
She definitely needs... So Louise gets the cure that all three of them need to be able to get it. And in that moment, because of how he's been helping you little bits along the way, you're kind of attached to him.
Yeah.
And then the parasite jumps out of his body a la, like, alien style, and he dies. And you are... Well, not really. I think it's one of the other bad guys that kills him in that moment, but... You know, similar concept, he dies, but you are attached to him in that moment, and you're like, oh, no.
Yeah.
And,
okay.
If I can get emotionally attached to a character in, like, just a few interactions, that death to me will mean something. But if it's just kind of, like, death willy-nilly, like, and I've come to expect it. Hi, George R.R. Martin. If it's just kind of like a willy-nilly death kind of thing, and yes, I realize that does make the plot go farther, but if it's just so much in such short spans of time, either via the TV show or via the books, I'm not going to get too attached because, like, it's not going to really mean anything, because at this point you're just doing it because you have to get the plot to move forward. Like, meh.
Okay. Grant. Death in fiction. What makes for a memorable? I can't speak today. Death for you.
Oh, a memorable death. I would say a memorable or good fictional death has to has to be consistent with the character and or consistent with the piece of fiction that it's in. Or it makes sense with the world.
Yeah.
Like, for example, in No Country for Old Men, the book or the movie, take your pick, a certain character is dispatched quite suddenly after a lot of build-up.
Yeah.
And that I know that threw a lot of people off, at least with the film adaptation. But when you think about it and you take into account the themes and the world that it takes place in, it really works out, and it's consistent. So I'd say consistency is
sure.
Yeah.
It's interesting I asked this question, and now I'm thinking about it, and I don't know that I know what I think constitutes a memorable death in stories. What I was considering is that it may boil down to the idea that that is a suitable end for this character, in the sense that when it happens, and maybe even how it happens, is just as important, or maybe more important, or maybe would even lead into why it happens. You know, and if it's unavoidable, I feel like for me, if it's unavoidable, that makes it that much more memorable. Because if I can explain a way out from how that character died, if I can say, well, it didn't have to happen that way because of
X, Y, Z.
these things, and if I can rearrange the plot to make it not happen, then it holds less value to me. It becomes less significant, because then it feels to me as though the author is sort of yanking me around and emotionally. It's like, oh, I'm going to make you feel this way because this character died. And it's like, yeah, but so, like,
at that point, it doesn't mean anything, because, like,
I will say the arbitrariness of death can be used to go to strong effect, but I see what
Do
you
you have an example?
you just threw him in the spotlight.
I mean, I have an example.
What is your
but
example?
I mean, I'll say No Country for Old Men again.
Sure.
It's on the brain.
Do think that the only death in the Harry Potter series that is absolutely arbitrary is Cedric's death, because it comes out of nowhere. I mean, it is, and it's fast. I mean, it just...
Not Fred?
Fred was in a war.
I know.
I mean, you know, it's like there's nothing. I mean, there's not. I mean, one could argue about the arbitrariness of war, but you'd have to argue about the arbitrariness of war. I mean,
right.
In a war, people should die. If no one died at the Battle of Hogwarts, then that would be just...
Right, no, I'm just joking.
You know,
I'm just joking because
Whereas,
I'm emotionally attached to Fred, okay?
Yeah, I mean, like, but there's a way to explain the death of every single character.
Yeah.
Even Hedwig, who gave her life in a sense, because she's protecting Harry.
She's also supposed to represent the death of his childhood.
No, I hadn't thought about that. That's fair. But Cedric's death, there's absolutely no reason whatsoever in the plot, except
He's
he
just
was
there.
Yep. and it's like, what? Like, it's so rude, and so fast.
Do you think it's effective, though?
I think it's very effective.
It's very effective.
But I think it's effective in depending on who you are as a reader. If you're not someone who actually, because you don't really grow to care about Cedric, and even in the book, you get a lot more of Cedric in the book than you do in the movie, but
Yep.
you still...
You also get a lot more of him because, like, he appears in the third book, so you have a little bit of more context with him. You don't see him in the movie.
Not important in the third
No,
book.
but, like,
his name is there.
You're at least introduced to him.
Not really.
He's a
kid at the school, but there's so many names in that book that you're kind of like, okay. Like, Ernie Macmillan takes up more of the plot of book 3 than...
He really does.
And then he never shows up again. You never know what happens to that kid.
You have Colin and Dennis Creevy, who, like, Colin's in there for, like, the second book, and Dennis is his little brother.
Were like, oh yeah, I forget that. I think Dennis was made up for the movies, if I'm not mistaken. One of them was invented. It wasn't Colin.
It's Dennis.
I think it's Dennis was invented.
No,
for the movies.
there was a little boy in the 5th movie. His name is, like, Nigel or something.
No, yeah, he was also invented.
He was invented.
Yeah.
No, but, like, because it's supposed to be, I think it's Colin who's supposed to die in the books. Colin dies.
I don't remember.
And then...
But
in the movies, it's his brother, and it's, like, some weird, like...
And it's different from, like, so if you look at okay, so for example, you look at the Hunger Games, right? Not everyone, but many people, when Rue dies, that's a moment. Like, it's... That is
a memorable
It's
day.
a powerful moment. I don't know that I would call it memorable. Or maybe... I mean, I don't know. I mean, can you call it memorable if every single person who's ever encountered the Hunger Games always remarks upon what happens to Rue and that they were upset? Is it memorable? Maybe.
No.
I feel like it's serviceable. Like
it's memorable to the character as kind of like a plot forward, but to the reader who, like, at this point he has experienced a whole bunch of death up until this point and is going to be experiencing much more later on because there's 2 more books.
But you haven't experienced personal death. I think that's the thing, is that you, like, in the book, I think that's one of the reasons it's so striking, is that none of the deaths that happen in the arena before that matter to Katniss. So that if you're a hypersensitive reader, you might be the kind of person that should not read the Hunger Games at all, because it's baked into the premise. But if you are someone who can handle it, it's like, oh, well, yeah, that kid kind of does. You can write it off, and then...
I have a question.
Yeah.
So do you think Rue would have survived if she put a bunch of makeshift weapons in her pouch and maybe some various foods or berries to see?
I feel like this is a leading question. Maybe.
Here's the thing.
Kangaroo.
Oh. I completely... Okay.
Anyways.
I'm going to move on to it.
I've derailed the whole thing.
It's fine.
No,
it's okay. I'm going to ask a different question. Okay, so... Is death, or why is death necessary in fiction?
Oh, I don't even know the answer to that question.
I don't know if it's necessary, not necessarily, but I will say that it's one of the most universal themes because everyone must face it at some point, and everybody does face it. So
right, yeah.
In many ways, it shapes almost every facet of our society.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's very interesting, actually, because.
Ooh, Tony's face. Tony just gave a face.
I want to know more. Tell me more.
What is this?
Professor Grant.
What is this? Starship Troopers?
Yeah,
Professor Grant.
No more?
No, really, I kind of want to know more. It's an interesting thought because, in a way, yeah. I mean, is society shaped like that? That's a whole other thing. Because it makes me think about, again...
We're getting philosophical here, everyone.
Reflecting that back to storytelling, how... It's almost like, how is it possible for any writer to avoid death in fiction? And yet, plenty of people do. Plenty of stories do. Even if... Because I think, having a death that has happened off page, something that is impacting your character, that's one way to do it, but you're not affecting the reader so much, or the viewer so much. I mean, that death happened, and maybe you could use it as a way to, like, fuel something in the character, like if someone else is close to death or something, that, but if they're not dying, I mean, it's not the same thing. So it's kind of like, how important is it for us to see characters in a state of mortality? If that makes sense. Like, why should we have to ever go there? That's a really terrible... It's a crap question.
I mean, it's an easy way to raise stakes or
it really
create anxiety or dread tension. Yeah, I mean, in some ways that can be a crutch.
Mm-hmm. Also, an easy way to further along plot, just in general. Mm-hmm. Like, you have your main character, and all of a sudden they just see their best friend die in front of them, a la Hunger Games. Well, now your main character has a motive for doing X, Y, Z, and it's used as kind of like a way to further along the plot. Like,
sure.
I'll go there and I'll say these words, and you can take them how you need to. But like, a la Batman, if his parents didn't die, would we really have Batman?
No, I mean, presumably.
So to further along the plot, we use the crutch of both his parents dying and giving him that sense of justice to fix Gotham, that he moves forward with the plot, and that's where then we can branch out and do all these different storylines and different types of things.
Yeah.
It's like The Flash. Like, if he didn't witness his mom die and see some weird, like, science, like, yellow flash stuff happening. He and his dad didn't get like.
It was me, Barry.
And his dad didn't get like thrown in prison.
Yeah.
Or something. Like he wouldn't have a motive for like being really obsessed with trying to get his dad out and trying to figure out the murder.
That's true. I mean, if you
like
think about how powerful
like if you really
death is with Full Metal Alchemist and how it entirely fuels Ed
exactly
and Al.
Like
that's
if Barry Allen's mom died in like just a regular car crash, we would not have Barry Allen being obsessively like trying to fix things and then possibly getting struck by lightning and being the Flash.
Right. No.
So basically death is kind of like that plot.
It can be used, yeah.
It's used as a motive a lot of times.
Yeah.
Do you think that death is used as a plot device more now, like in the modern world, now that as lifespans increase and everything, death is less prevalent?
No. I think that, honestly, I think that death in storytelling these days is too frequent. And
I think it's too throwaway.
It is it's very throwaway.
That's why I mentioned Game of Thrones earlier, because a lot of times to me it just feels like you're.
But I think that Game of Thrones is often accused of this unfairly. I think one of the most memorable deaths I've ever seen and experienced is Joffrey's death, because it's something at some point you want as a viewer, like all of us in a moralistic society, we all want that little, person.
Like the Red Wedding.
We want him to die, and we want him to die horribly, and we know that this is a world in which people have no problem brutally murdering a child. That's how the series.
He's a little kid king or whatever.
Yeah,
right?
he's the boy king, and that's how the story starts. They shove a kid out of the top of a tower, and that starts everything. That kid doesn't die, but the point is, that there are adults in this world
that don't care,
who will brutally murder a child, and every character on the board has a reason to brutally murder this child. But for me, what makes his death in particular memorable is the way that they shot the scene.
Yes.
Because the utter mayhem that's happening at this wedding where everybody's already really cringy because it's Joffrey getting married. So do we celebrate? If we don't celebrate, is he going to treat us like he treats his wife? Oh my God, that girl, we're totally handing her over to that kid. Is no one going to do anything? Like, you can see all of the adults in the room.
And then Grandma is like, listen, I got this.
You can see all of the adults in the room, no matter their power scale, their age, their anything. They're all balancing this really tricky thing of like, this kid really has this much control, and we're going to do nothing about it. And then he's poisoned to death, and it's horrifying.
I will say, my favorite death in that show that I got two catharsis out of, Ramsay and Baelish.
I didn't really feel anything about Ramsay.
I have another question after that.
Yes.
In relation to that. But brief aside, I had never seen any episode of Game of Thrones at all. My dad was watching it. I came into the room, and it was Joffrey's death, and it was terrifying.
It is. It's horrifying.
What am I watching?
It's horrifying. It is, and I took credit to the writers. That's pretty good.
Is that the same episode where the guy pushes that guy's eyeballs?
Yeah, no, it's actually in the same area. I don't think it's the same
Not
episode.
the same episode.
I think it's a couple episodes later. That's Oberyn Martell. And that was like during the champion thing.
Yeah, that was.
I walked in on that one, and I wasn't watching it at that moment. Like I was just like walking through the room, and I got into that moment.
Yeah, that wasn't a death I want to relive.
I was like, oh no, Pedro Pascal.
Yeah, that
was Pedro Pascal.
That was Pedro Pascal.
Oh.
Yeah. I know, right? Before he was Mandalorian.
Mm-hmm. Do you think it's good that we feel catharsis at some characters' deaths? Do you think it's neither here nor there?
I think that's good writing on the behalf of either the writers of the television show or the writers of the book.
I don't know that I would use the word catharsis. I think that, like any tool of writing, one...
Did you feel some schadenfreude about it?
No. One should never feel only one thing because of this one tool. I mean, I think that depending on the story, you can feel any number of things. I do think that there are... In fact, there really are. If you get to the end of Return of the Jedi and you feel catharsis that the Emperor has died, you might be feeling the wrong emotion.
No.
What I feel is victory, is joy. I'm like, yes, we won. But that's because the Emperor is a cartoon character.
Right.
He's not actually a real person. Like, nobody wants to...
No.
But when Darth Vader dies a few scenes later... Yeah, you might want to feel a little bit of... Even if it's just because of Luke. You may not feel anything for Vader particularly unless you're like me and you just watch the Clone Wars every year. Then you do feel some kind of like rich... There's a rich emotion there because you've seen this character go through all of these things and, whatever. But people who watched that original trilogy, I remember feeling this as a kid. You do feel something for Luke because, like, he finally gets his dad and, like... No, he doesn't get his dad. Like, his dad sacrificed himself. Like, that's a big moment for someone who's only wanted this, like, moment with his dad, What was I going with that? Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, I feel like, death can be different. It can mean different things. I mean, Obi-Wan Kenobi's death is not cathartic. It's circumstantial, and you're just kind of like, oh, and maybe you should... I think something you feel there is like a pit of despair kind of moment. But you don't have very long because they're going to be attacked. So this all...
I don't think every single death should be written as feeling cathartic.
I didn't mean every death.
I think it's...
You asked the question.
I think it, to me, it just depends on, one, how the character's written. Mm-hmm. So, like, I'm using my Game of Thrones, for example, because that's where I mentioned it earlier, but, like, with Ramsay and Baelish, I had a very, like, big connection with Sansa as a character. Like, she was one of my favorites.
Sure, yeah.
And so, feel like... Yes, I know in the books it's a different storyline because currently if we read the book, she's up in the Vale and she's like somewhere completely different. And this is like her storyline with Ramsay is actually specifically for a different character.
Oh, sure, okay.
But like if you're watching the show and you are attached to that character, once it reaches that like antithesis of how he dies and knowing his... And the thing is, I love Ewan Rayner in the first place because that's
he's a good character.
He's great. But knowing the storyline of his character and what he does, the end that he meets at the hands of his own dogs, is kind of like, to me, as somebody who's a Sansa fan, I'm feeling a sense of justice here.
Sure.
And it's kind of the same thing with the Peter Baelish character because he's...
Oh, I was so glad he died.
Like, he's basically, like, if we want to be real about it, he's kind of the cause of a lot of the stuff that happened.
He absolutely is.
And it's literally just because...
From the very beginning.
And it's literally just because he had a hard-on for Catelyn Stark.
To be honest, though, I was glad he died because he was an anchor to the plot. And that is not something that you should feel when you're...
Right.
enjoying a series or anything.
But, like, to me,
I was
felt like...
oh, please get... He's such a waste of space.
I felt like, at that moment, like, I realized there's only, like, the 4 Stark children really left, but, like, I felt like it was a good sense of justice of, like...
Yeah, no, I think it was
they
clever.
got to deal with him in their own way at that moment in time.
Yeah.
Would I have wished that it was all of the children who got that kind of sense of justice out of it? Yes, but is that going to happen because it's a George R.R. Martin book and, like, two of the children are already, like, dead? Yes. But, like, I still feel, like, a great sense of justice because, like, those characters have suffered this whole entire time because this one man's actions and his crush on their mom caused all of them to have to deal with all of this. Sure. And so it's a lot of, like, that kind of... vindictive justice, catharsis, however you want to call it.
Yeah, no, I think, character deaths are hard. Yes.
5 minutes.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, no, character deaths are hard, and I don't know how I would... There's not enough to ask another question, so we're just going to move on. Speaking of character deaths or characters who never die, because in comics, the one rule is if you kill a character, you can always bring them back.
That is the true rule.
It's just...
Lazarus Pit says hello.
Exactly. So, I guess we're going to do an actual smack.
Oh, no.
So, Superman... Batman or Wonder Woman. I honestly can't believe we've not done this one yet, but apparently we haven't.
We might have, but I just might have put it back in the box.
Wait, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman?
Yeah. I don't remember us doing this one, but... Who would you snog? Who would you marry? Who would you kill?
Marry Superman.
Good choice.
Snog Batman.
Yep.
Kill Wonder Woman because she could always abuse the power of her truth rope. You know.
I'm kind of
I have never
considered
that before. But she
honest,
totally could.
And unlike Superman, whose people have been destroyed, she also has, I feel like, her attachment to the Amazonian race may supersede her attachment to you.
I would just, in my personal opinion, and it's just because I want to be the Batmom, I would switch. But that's just because I want to be Batmom.
No, that's fair.
So
actually, how would she abuse the truth rope?
What if she doesn't think you're telling the truth about what you did yesterday? So she smacks you with the truth rope, and she's like, "Yo, you have to tell me the truth now, even though you are telling the truth."
Because there should be trust in a relationship, and I feel like if she ever felt like, that could, it could be a fallback.
Grant, Jesse, I have never thought of you as a romantic. Aw, it's kind of sweet. Yeah, you're right. That's true. She would be. Would she?
Not saying she's a bad person. I'm just saying.
Well,
I haven't read the comics. So.
Of the three, she's honestly okay. Everyone who loves Wonder Woman is probably going to kill me right now, but
sorry.
She's honestly, in my view, the least interesting. So yeah, I want to kill her too. And I would get the entertainment of watching my Kryptonian husband, do murder in my name. Why not?
Fair.
Clearly, I've always wanted to be a monarch of some kind. I don't know. It's not my fault. So yeah, there we are. Thanks, friends. That was nice. Yay.
Yay.
Characters died, people died.